Hi everyone, I'm Tara and welcome to the first afternoon of our live webcast in September. I'll be interviewing Alex Ramseyer-Bache, the director of documentary We Are Poets. Just want to say a big hello to all the schools watching and a shout out to Lawnswood School in Leeds and St Mary Abbot School in South Kensington. If you've got any questions for Alex, then you can send us them via Twitter, email or text. And the details are here. We'd love to hear from you. So let's get started. Hello Alex and welcome to Film Club Webcast Studio.
Hiya, thanks for having me.
Could you start by telling us a little bit about the film?
Yes, We Are Poets is a documentary, a feature-length documentary about a group of poets, young poets, from a group called Leeds Young Authors. And this group have been writing and performing poetry for years and developing their skills. And the film follows them on a journey to America where they compete in the world's biggest poetry slam. And a poetry slam is poetry performed with a competitive element to it. And so they're chosen to represent the UK out in America, and the film follows them all the way from Leeds out to Washington D.C.
Sounds very interesting. What do you like about making a documentary where you follow the journey rather than one where events have already unfolded? And are there any risks involved in this type of filmmaking? Yeah,
certainly there are risks. I think that the thing when you're following something is you don't know when there's going to be an end. You have to follow it until there is either an obvious end for the story or for the group or for the characters, or you've just reached a natural conclusion. It was something that was actually a risk for us, but we, as filmmakers, we just committed to the group and committed to what they were doing. We loved it so much and we wanted to represent it. And so we just said, well, look, we will be with you and work with you until a natural conclusion is there. So there is a risk, but it's much more fun, I think, personally, because you don't know what's going to happen and you're always in the moment and things are changing all the time. And that's exciting. It's quite scary as a filmmaker because you're not sure where your story's going to go, but you have to be open to those things. So if someone decides to talk about a certain subject and go down a certain story, then you have to almost travel down that route until it reaches an end, until it can go no further. Film all you're going to film. And so, you know, you might end up actually filming lots of different stories and you have to choose which one's best and which one best represents your story.
Sounds very tricky.
Yeah.
We're now going to watch the first clip from We Are Poets. This poem is recited at the beginning and I think it's a great introduction to the film.
I come from rainbows and thunderclouds, from ladybirds and dragonflies, from fighting with fireworks on streets, hop, skip, hope to miss the syringes. I come from steel and sandstone, asphalt and coniferous forest. I come from sweat, smell and the invisible whirl of chromosomes. I come from the warm pouch with umbilical cord. I come from that first prehistoric spark of enlightened consciousness on an East African plain. I come from the dense nuclei flung from the wombs of stars. But in the end, I concede and say the least needed of me. I come from Leeds.
Do you think the location of Leeds was important to the documentary? Is there a developed poetry culture there that you think inspired the group at all?
Yeah, it was important. It certainly was important. I mean, I'm from Leeds and I grew up just around the corner from where the poetry group is based. And so the sense of place was really important to us, but both for the story to actually give context to their work, because they're writing poems that really reveal their personal stories, their issues and the things that they experience. And so we've got to contextualise that with the place, because those stories come from that place, and so it's very important to put a community on screen somehow. We were always talking about that, of how to put Leeds, how to put a community, how to put that texture of a place on screen, and so we worked really hard to do that. And so yeah, it really was important to us, yeah.
Why do you think it's important that today's youth have a creative voice?
Oh, it's vital, absolutely vital. I mean, it's just from my personal experience, I was, even in primary school and into high school, really taught that you have this thing called an imagination, and if you're really knowledgeable about that, if you actually understand that you have this gift, this creative force, you can do amazing things with it. It's the most important thing that you have. I think it's extremely important for young people, and it is difficult. I think this is what this film was aiming to do, was trying to say, well, look how important it can be if you give those opportunities and you support them and you nurture them and you actually listen to young people. It's a hard thing to, lots of things will sometimes, there'll be lots of young people actually being given a voice, but then you've got to learn to listen as well and to actually respect that voice, because it's valid at any age. I think that's something we were trying to get across with the film, is although these young people are they're 13 to 19-year-old poets, and to be of such a young age and to be performing on stage and doing something that's so relevant and powerful, it can seem at first like it's incredible because they're young, but actually that wasn't what it was about really for us. We had to kind of throw that out the window. It was more about, these are a valid voice at any age. They're artists at 12, at 13, and they can stand up against any adult artist. Their voice is valid for that time and that time in their life.
Now we've got a question that has come in from our telephone hotline.
Robbie, 14 years old, Beach School. Do you think there's a difference between rap and poetry?
Yes. Wow, that is a hard one. It's one that we've been asked a lot with the film, and I think because there's a crossover between, especially as you see a lot of young people, they're interested in rap, and then if they take up poetry, almost it can be labelled into the same thing. So I think there is a difference, but they all spring from the same thing. I mean, rap came from poetry, absolutely. Poetry is one of the most ancient art forms that humans have ever been doing, and so rap was just another form that's just taken poetry and put it to music, and a lot of very respected lyricists, top hip hop artists, will count themselves as poets, and some of them will count themselves as poets first before they're rappers and artists. It's almost poetry is the core, and then rap will come on as an offshoot from that. So they are totally intermixed. So maybe it shouldn't really be seen as two separate things, in my opinion. But it's a good question, and one that I hope the film can start to help find an answer.
We've got a question from Twitter now. Thanks, Tom. This one is from Bolton School, and they ask, who is your favourite poet and why?
Hey, Bolton. Favourite poet, wow. Well, I'd probably have to say, I mean, we interviewed Saul Williams in the film, and he's an incredible poet. But off the top of my head, I'd probably say someone such as Benjamin Zephaniah. He's a well-known poet in Britain, and then he was the very first poet that I was ever exposed to as a kid. I remember I was 10 years old, and it was shown his work, and he was the first person that showed me that the written word can be written in the voice of someone, in an accent, rather than just normal English. He would write in his accent, and it was an incredible thing, a revelation to me that language could be used like that. And I bought the first ever book I ever bought as a kid with my own pocket money was Benjamin's book, and so it was something that was important, and we kind of revisited that with this film. We revisited that my understanding of poetry with this film. So yeah.
And we're just going to watch the second clip of the film. This is where one of the young girls is talking about her passion for poetry.
I've always had a passion to write. I could express it, but there was no one to express it to. And once I started Leeds Young Authors, I feel there was a lot of people like myself.
I don't know how she can think of all these things. She might be in a bedroom a few hours and she's just writing. Then when she tells me, I think, God, how can she think of it?
Some people are like, oh, poetry. I'm like, it's not what you think. Like, I was trying to explain, yeah, to my mum's side of the family. My mum was like, it's not that kind of poetry. It's like, and then when they hear it, they're like, oh, I didn't realise, because they just think, like, roses are red, violets are blue.
I think it gives them something to do as well, you know, something to achieve instead of roaming the streets. You know what I mean? They put everything into it. A lot of hard work goes into it.
That was the first thing my dad ever came and supported me with.
And so why do you think poetry is being re-examined and appreciated today?
Hopefully because of the film. no, it's so very relevant, because if you can, it's a social commentary, and it's a really important social commentary, and if it's a valid art form. It's been validated over the years through even an academic side down to something that can be appreciated by young people and non-academic side. And so if a young person comes up and they're giving their social commentary, their version of events, their experience, it's a platform for you to listen to that idea, and it's a platform that makes you listen, and it really captivates. I mean, you know, with spoken word as well, when it's performed in front of you as well, it's unavoidable, and it transcends all these normal forms of communication. I think we sometimes struggle with these days. There's so much information flying around all over the place that we struggle to find an exact meaning in all that, and poetry can cut through all that and give you a meaning, give you a voice. And so I think it's been re-examined as well through education, because it's really important to give something like that to young people, and so it's finding its way more and more into education, and it's good to see. It's really good to see, yeah.
The poetry featured in the film is quite socio-political. Do you think there's a place for more traditional poetry today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was something that struck us immediately, but that how politically active it was, and how much they wanted to express their point of view politically. But that comes from as well, because they're looking at world leaders, they're looking at great orators, people like, you know, Barack Obama, and they're seeing that a nation can be galvanized through words. You know, a whole idea can be there through words, and they're seeing that power that comes with words. And so naturally some poems will go down the political route, because they're trying to describe that moment in time for that generation. You know, Sadhu in the film says, a poet is someone who speaks for their generation, and if I don't represent it, who will? And that's true, because if they're not representing it, then you'll have just outside forces representing your generation and totally spinning it in a different direction, which is some stuff we've seen, you know, through, you know, bad representation of young people in the media. So it's yeah. Could you just repeat the question again?
The poetry in the film is quite socio-political. Yeah. Do you think there's a place for more traditional poetry?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there is, because although they were doing a lot of this poetry, they also read a lot of traditional poetry, and it was all written first. It was gone through those stages as a traditional poem would, and they respected all those traditional poets, and so absolutely, it's just as valid as any form. And it was something we were trying to get across, that the competitive element to it, and slam and this kind of fast, energised poetry is just part of the poetry tradition. It's not a different form. It's not anything. So the traditional sense is totally wrapped up in all of it, and just as important.
And what do you think the young poets have learnt from the experience of making the film?
Wow. Well, we spent years with them. You know, it's been 5 years in the making of the film, and it was about 3 years with them filming on and off. So they've learned a lot about filmmaking, I imagine, as well. But the way it started was that it was going to be more of a resource as a film. We knew we were going to make a film that followed them on this journey. But along the way, we knew that we would investigate all kinds of different stories, that the film process itself would help them look at their work and reevaluate their work. So we started off just by filming their poems, and then they would see those poems back, and it would help them practice and rehearse and to learn more about themselves. And having to question their work and question their relationships and question where they're going as part of the film, like me asking them questions and having to challenge themselves, I think really pushed their work, and well, that's what they've told us, you know, that's enhanced their work. So, I mean, we've learned just as much as they have, and you know, it was an experience for all of us. I think we kind of went through it together. So, I'm sure they've learned a lot of filmmaking, but they've also improved their work.
We're now going to watch a final clip of the film. This is when two of the girls are performing their poem on stage.
I am freedom. I am the poet. I am the power to speak, think and act without superficial constraints being imposed. The right to speak when not spoken to. The right to name myself X in order to be unidentified in the system. I am the ink blotches on the hand of an illiterate slave. The hands that dug the underground tunnels. I am the food to be fed to the thoughts of fascists and skinheads. Malnourished of empathy, surviving on diets of xenophobia. I am the burgundy British passport in the hand of a lonesome foreigner, granted citizenship to join the golden streets of England. I am the thing that when you wake and stretch, you subconsciously reach for. I am freedom, and if today they choose to sniper me, let it be known, I am the poet, the only freedom you will ever know.
So what do you think performance adds to the poetry?
Wow.
Quite fake.
Well, it was the thing that we were first confronted with, and it was a kind of confronted because this it was a force. I mean, we met the group, and Saju and Joseph, who are in the film, pulled us to one side and said, "Do you want to see a poem?" And just the notion of wanting to see a poem is a strange idea, and because I'd personally never seen spoken word or never seen put into a slam context, and Joseph performed a piece to us, and it changed everything immediately as we were watching this piece. I do a lot of work with young people, and it threw everything out the window for us. So I think, as from our point of view, performance enhanced everything about that piece, and because it's so direct, and if you're in that space and in that room in a slam, and you know, if anyone gets a chance to go and see that live, I would definitely take that opportunity, because there's just an energy in the room, and if you're vibing off that energy, then it's an incredible experience. So it brings a lot, but it also brings a lot to them. I think that to go through that process of you've got to write that poem, you've got to edit it, you've got to work it, you've got to challenge it, you've got to, you know, make sure it's right. Then to take it onto stage is this whole process, and once it reaches stage, you feel very confident in that work. And they explain it themselves in the film that just to go through that performance, it's an incredible. I mean, it's very therapeutic in a way, but it's just an amazing feeling to get up on stage and to have your voice heard.
And we've got another question from email this time. Thanks, Tom. This one is from Bex at Townley Grammar, and she says, how much do you think the presence of a camera crew affects how people act when they're filming?
Hey Bex, hey Townley. It will affect them. You know, you can't avoid that, I don't think. What was interesting about Leeds Young Authors and the poets in the film is that they were very natural already, very incredibly honest people, and so we could actually get through that barrier quite quickly. You know, and what we did was we were very honest with each other. We just said, look, we're going to make this film, we're going to collaborate, and we had to build up a trust first, very important thing, and that can take some time. And once that trust was established, it was then they just didn't feel the camera there, and they could really be themselves, and that then shows in the film. So it's a very important question and a very important process that you've got to go through, because you want to be as unobtrusive as you possibly can.
And lastly, this was your first film. What's next for you?
Well,
not sure.
Yeah, it was our first film. I know it's been a long journey, and there's lots of things that have come from this. We'd like to, I mean, speaking on behalf of myself and Daniel, who's the co-director, work together on more documentaries. And so it's created a lot of ideas, even through the process of us making We Are Poets. We've started to look at other stories, and also other stories that really represent young people. It's something that I've always wanted to do as a filmmaker, so I'll continue doing that.
And it's great talking to you. Sadly, we have run out of time, but thank you so much for coming in and answering all our questions. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you enjoyed hearing from Alex. Please do join us again tomorrow when we will be interviewing filmmakers at the Encounter Short Film and Animation Festival. Goodbye.